He's 40 feet away near the timeline. Now Jimmer sizing up Moss. Oh, no. Oh, yes! Oh, yes!
Oh, no. Oh, yes. Jimmer Range is back. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to those of you out there. Hope you all are doing well as we enter 2023. Carl Heiser, joined as always by my co-host, Alex Cervantes. Alex, how you doing today?
We're good. Get to talk some college hoops.
Talk some college hoops. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good. Yeah, can't be bad. We're going to talk about our most surprising and disappointing teams entering 2023. Surprising in a good way.
Yes.
I feel like that could be taken both ways, but like surprising in a good way. Pleasantly surprised and sadly disappointed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a good.
We're disappointed that a team is better than we thought that they would be.
Yeah. No, that is what we should have done.
Yeah.
This is where. Oh. See, I'm disappointed Louisville won a game.
Yeah, the chances of an 0-31, 0-32 season are out the window.
I know.
But
Louisville, Georgia Tech is just going to be I don't know how to describe it.
Appointment television.
It really is.
Sicko game of the week, maybe?
Not even sicko. It should just be the game of the week. I don't know why people would pass on that opportunity. Clearly, they're not tuning into ACC Network Extra like the rest of us.
I mean, sure. It can't be as bad as Georgetown offering free tickets to DC residents and having like 100 people show up.
That's very poor.
And I'm pretty sure they won that game too. I think they beat Siena. I think that was the game.
Yeah, Morris.
So
you shouldn't beat Siena.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, we're going to go through most surprising, most disappointing teams, but a couple interesting results from this past week that we definitely have to talk about. The first one being the most embarrassing loss of our lifetime, maybe?
Statistically, yes.
Statistically, like in the modern point spread era, Iowa lost at home as a 31.5 point favorite against Eastern Illinois, who is entering that game a bottom 10 team in KenPom.
Are they still bottom 10?
I don't think they are. I think that pushed them up. The fact that they shot, it's well known. We've talked about it. Iowa doesn't really play any defense. That's not.
They
really
barely moved out of the top 10, which says a lot
for how efficient they were.
10,
Absolutely, yeah. They shot 60% from the field, 40% from three. They dropped like 92 points on Iowa.
It's absurd.
Crazy.
Can't happen. They won the second half by 17 points. No, come on.
Iowa was without Chris Murray, but that's absolutely no excuse.
No. It's truly no excuse. Like, I don't even know. I mean, they were killed on Twitter, and rightfully so. But, like.
And the fact it's bad, like, I didn't see a single Iowa fan on Twitter be like, well, we didn't even have Chris Murray. Because, like, this is the type of game that even without Chris Murray, they know they shouldn't lose. It's not like they played, I don't know, a solid mid-major. It's not like they played, like, Southern Mississippi or something.
Yeah.
And lost without Chris Murray.
It's not even like it's like you played like Illinois, Chicago.
Yeah, no, this is a bad team.
Yeah.
Had a great night in their own right. Had a great night and a bad night for Iowa. And they shot like I think 21% from three, 30% from the field.
I'll find it.
Just couldn't get it going.
It's too good not to find, actually.
Imagine we should start on Twitter. We should just start tweeting out anytime there's like a 30 or 20 point underdog. We should just tweet out like Mississippi Valley State money line, and then if they lose, we delete it.
So, that's good. Yeah. I like it. I like making picks, and then if they're wrong,
getting rid of
deleting them.
Yeah.
I think that's a great mentality. Actually,
that'd be such a good bit.
Yeah,
just making
outlandish
picks and deleting them.
I was 7 of 33 from three. 20 of 32 from the line.
Yeah, it's bad.
Philip Rabracha was probably the only person who showed up.
Just not a good game.
Patrick McCaffrey was 3 of 15 from the field. 3 of 15.
I didn't even see it. So you watched some of it. I didn't even watch it. I was like driving, so I didn't see it.
I caught like a snippet of it, but I was like in a Chinese restaurant with my brother, and I was scrolling through Twitter, and all I just see was a bunch of people I go to school with being like just Iowa related tweets. And I was like, this can't be happening. Cause I knew they were playing. I was like, this really can't, like Fran McCaffrey can't let this happen.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask is, so you know that graphic that goes around on Twitter every now and then that's like FranCon, like 1 through 10 of like how angry he gets.
Yeah.
That was my question, was like, did you see any glimpses of Fran McCaffrey and how angry was he?
I did not. I saw a picture, no context college basketball.
Yes.
They took a screenshot from a game like 2 weeks prior, and they were like, they just posted the picture, and that was it. But it accurately captured the moment.
Yeah, it's just so tough.
And I think, funny enough, the game like Fran McCaffrey was upset at, I swear it was like the Iowa State game when they like blew out the Cyclones.
Oh, sure.
Like, I think that's what the timestamp was, but don't quote me on that, please.
Yeah, but that's part of the charm with Fran McCaffrey is like he'll just get mad.
Yeah,
it's not. It doesn't have to align perfectly with the situation that they're in.
Something about those old coaches, man.
He picks his spots
for everything.
He picks his spots.
They just want to get mad.
Yeah. Another interesting result. Illinois got dog walked by Missouri.
Shellacked.
Oh, bad.
Shellacked.
Bad.
Illinois
is kind of falling apart.
They are dysfunctional at the moment, to say the least.
Guys saying things in press conferences.
Yeah. Saying that they have to like fix stuff internally with the players and coaches.
Brad Underwood calling out players' leadership.
Matthew Meyer getting upset that he's like not getting touches.
Yeah. How's Terrence Shannon's leadership?
Jeez.
So good.
He was probably their best player against Missouri. I mean, he was probably their only player, but yeah.
I don't know. Do you think we learned more from this game about Illinois or Missouri?
This is something I want to ask. How much stock do you put in, shot quality? How much stock do you put in that index?
I don't know how much I put in from like a game to game perspective, but I like it as like this team is due, kind of.
Okay.
Like that was one of the factors behind when I predicted when the ACC tournament bracket came out and I said Virginia Tech is going to the final. Like one of the things I cited was shot quality. Like they were getting absolutely screwed based on the shots that they were taking. Like they should have been winning way more games.
Mm-hmm.
So
Illinois last night, according to shot quality, should have won that game.
That's crazy. I did see they were expected to score like 12 more points on threes, but even that doesn't get them a win though.
So Illinois couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and they have looked bad since the Texas comeback win.
Yeah.
Conversely, Missouri hit everything. Like Missouri was hitting buckets where like if you weren't down 25, Brad Underwood would have – I mean, he's Brad Underwood, so, like, he wouldn't say this, but, like, if you're a normal person, you're like, that's just a tough bucket, like, good defense, better offense. Like, someone banked in a three from the left wing with the shot clock winding down, and that took the lead to, like, 20 at one point in the first half. Like, you can't do anything at that point.
Yeah.
Like, Terrence Shannon stayed in front. Like, I don't
it
was 5 feet behind the three-point line. They threw it up and it banked in. There was, like, another one where, like, Dane Danger was, like, out on the perimeter. And he did well.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who it was from Missouri, hit a three in his face. Like, I don't know what more you want from your 6'10" center guarding on the perimeter. But, like, conversely, Illinois took some really bad shots and, like, could not figure out that, like, 3-2 zone man defense thing that Missouri had going. And then they were taking bad shots, and then they weren't getting back in transition. And you should know that Missouri wants to play fast. Their tempo is off the charts. It's top 10 nationally. They want to just score the ball.
Yeah.
But they played defense tonight, which they don't really do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the greatest separating factor.
Yeah. At some point, if the team you're playing is just hitting everything they take, then there's only so much you can do.
Yep.
But I'm not prepared to say Illinois did all they can do considering they lost by 22 points. So there's definitely some failure on their end. So they have 4 losses now. Illinois
out. They're dropping out of the top 25.
You think so?
They should. Hot take. I thought Indiana should drop out of the top 25.
I had them even when they were like winning games. I say just because like
I know Indiana, if you've listened to the podcast, you know Carl's thoughts on Indiana.
Indiana scheduling, like, I just have beef with every decision they've made from a scheduling standpoint too, because while all these teams were in, these MTEs, whether it was Maui or the PK85, Indiana's out here playing
Their
the
own
Hoosier
Hoosier
Tip-Off Classic, which is 3 true home games against like sub 300
Yeah.
Ken Pom teams. It's terrible.
Unrelated. Why did Indiana get rid of the Crossroads Classic? Like, why is that?
It's just dumb. It would like always be competitive too.
Yep.
Like, that would be such a great thing to have. At some point, that's a project we'll finish, is the Crossroads Classic for every state.
That is my goal.
At some point,
it'll happen.
One
At
day
some
we will
point.
finish it.
I have a long list.
It's just tough because some states don't have like 4 Division I schools.
Yeah.
So like we'd be pulling in Chaminade though, which would be fun.
Chaminade is on there.
Yeah. So Missouri's 11-1.
Yes, with just getting smoked by Kansas. I'm waiting to see them play SEC competition.
Yeah, they really have not, like, outside of Kansas and Illinois, have not really played anyone.
No, and like I saw a great point from like Jim Root on Twitter. Like, does it really move the needle that much depending on like the low majors they were playing?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little here and there. Maybe you get a little more confidence, but right now you can pencil them in probably as a tournament team just because that's what people like to do right now.
Yeah.
It's fun. Bracketology is fun. So you can pencil them in as a tournament team. We'll see what happens when SEC play arises. But I really want to know like what the issue with Isaiah Mosley is. Like, why isn't he getting minutes?
Yeah. Coming in as a 50, 40, 90 player, especially.
And with like the significant NIL boost that they allegedly gave him.
Right.
Reportedly gave him. Not allegedly. Allegedly is too strong. Reportedly gave him.
You want to talk allegedly, we can talk about Chris Beard.
Oh.
If you want to use the word allegedly. We can throw that one around a little bit.
Rick Pitino, allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Beard situation. So the latest on Chris Beard is that his fiance came out and said he didn't choke me. He was acting in self-defense, which I just have a lot of questions. I don't know. We don't have to get too into the weeds with it, but I just have so many questions about, like, why do you have to clarify that he was acting in self-defense if he didn't do anything physical?
Yeah.
Like anything seriously physical.
Why is she coming back on it now from like the original police report too?
Right, exactly. There's just a lot that doesn't make. It's just a really bad scene. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's not good, especially when considering like they let Arterio Morris back on the team as well.
Yes, this is the second domestic violence incident in Texas basketball in the last 6 months.
Yes.
So I think at some point, like, it's just
go Longhorns.
Horns down, dude. Horns.
But like seriously, I forget. I wish I could credit the person that, like, I think it was Aaron Torres. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw this video, but he like made a really good point that like how if you're Chris Beard, even if like these charges are dropped, how do you go into a recruit's home and be like, I will turn this kid into a man? Yeah. Like, how do you tell a kid's parents that? Like, recruiting, I mean, like, you're Texas, so you're going to have the NIL boost. Texas is a national brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're still obviously going to get kids, but at what point does, like, the past 2.5 weeks come back to haunt him a little bit? Like, how much does that hang a cloud over everything?
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a PR nightmare, and it just, like, Chris Beard, he's coaching at his alma mater. Like, this is his dream job. Yeah. And just no sense of, like, he threw it away, basically. Although maybe not. I mean, maybe they bring him back, which would, I think, be a really unfortunate circumstance. I don't know that would be the right call, but
we'll see.
We'll see. Character aside, he's a good basketball coach. So,
yes.
From that angle, like,
separate the art from the artist.
Like, if they So,
listen.
Yeah. Say what you will about
Chris Beard, but he took Texas Tech to the Final Four in 2019. Yeah. Kanye made graduation.
Oh.
Is this the analogy we're making?
Yeah. I just mean from that perspective, it's not like it'd be one thing. Like, imagine if at Louisville, like, Kenny Payne did something like heinous.
They fire him.
Like, he's gone immediately. Like, the only reason Chris Beard still has his job right now is because he's such a good basketball coach.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all I meant. I'm not I'm not saying like, no, just excuse it because he's really good. To clarify, let's be clear here.
Need to be on the record.
I need to be on
Carl,
the record.
not a big proponent of domestic.
Yeah, I want this on the record. I'll put this on a quote card. Jim Moraine.
Also, Hornets, please don't re-sign Miles Bridges. That was an NBA related thing, but I saw that tweet today, that report. Please don't do that.
Yes.
Anyway, I think that Kenny Payne is a good segue to go into disappointing teams.
All right. Yeah. Do you want to start with our pleasant surprises or our sad disappointments?
Should we go negative first, or do you want to like go back and forth?
Let's go negative first, and we'll end on a positive. And I'm thinking we start with our honorable mentions and then move our way down.
Okay.
So you can just run through your honorable mentions. If you have like a couple notes about them, you can throw those out there.
So for context, like I had San Diego State as like semi disappointing, as like that like fringe honorable mention. Because I was really high on them, as were you, coming into the year. Like we both had them top 15.
Yeah.
And this isn't to say that they're in a bad place, but they are 9-3, and they've lost like all three marquee games. Like Ohio State is a good win in Maui, but you got trounced by Arizona and then lost in overtime to Arkansas, and then you lost to St. Mary's. So like I would have liked to see them pick up. Granted, you probably weren't going to beat Arizona. Seemingly no one besides Utah can beat Arizona. So, but like picking up one of those wins against Arkansas or St. Mary's probably would have moved the needle to like where I'm not apprehensive heading into Mountain West play. This team is still talented. They're still really good defensively. But yeah, they were kind of that like little weird area, I think, for me.
Fair enough.
I want to like another honorable mention. Like I want to cut them some slack a little bit, but like John Shire's like in-game adjustments, considering like I've watched all the Duke games. Like having
okay.
That's like a little one for me, but like it's weird things where like you're playing like an uber athletic kind of center and you're playing Ryan Young for like prolonged minutes, which like isn't Ryan Young's game. Right?
Correct.
And then so this Wake Forest game, for context, people, I went in person. Some would say in hindsight, it's the worst $60 I've ever spent. Very sad to sit through that. The game felt over after like the under 12 timeout in the first half, which is weird. When you're trying to claw back in a game like that and Steve Forbes is out coaching, like there was no adjustments, it seemed like. And then the rotations he was using, he at one point had, I think, a lineup of Roach, Proctor, Filipowski, who did not make a three that game, Ryan Young, and Mark Mitchell on the floor. And none of those guys can really shoot it. And when you're trying to claw back from like a 12, 15-point deficit, you have to have somebody on the floor who can either like initiate that play. So it's just like little stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I guess that's probably being too nitpicky on a 35-year-old head coach in his first year.
I don't know. It seems like guys are getting put in good positions, but it's like, I don't know that I can count the times in that game sitting there watching it where Tyrese Proctor had a wide open three, and I was like, he's missing this.
Yes, which is startling.
Like
they had good looks.
So that's the thing. Like, there's only so much Shire can do if guys aren't going to make the shots.
Okay, so I'll go disappointing Duke's guards making shots. And then TCU until Mike Miles and Damian Ball came back was alarming.
Yeah, they're kind of back-ish.
They're back-ish. Indiana, they are not in my most disappointing, but they're like on that cusp. That's probably my last team. And that is because I still have faith that they will figure it out and they are good enough to.
Yeah.
But I can understand the fraudulent allegations considering they got blown out by Kansas, which happens a lot in Fog Allen, for what it's worth. Happens a lot. But they got murdered.
Yes.
15-point loss to Rutgers, which, listen, winning at the rack is hard. Maybe you should keep within single digits.
It's not even the rack anymore.
It's true. Yeah. I'm going to call it that, though. Doesn't even matter.
It'll always be the rack.
And then, who was that third one?
Arizona.
Nothing you can do there. I mean, there's stuff you can do, but it's tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've gotten trounced by the really good teams they played. Spare the 2-point win on the road against Xavier. So
that's probably their best win. I think.
A little disappointing in that regard, but I don't know. The Big Ten isn't good. So
I mean, that's a good win. Like Xavier's a top
35 team.
35 team.
Yeah.
So, but like I think it's more indicative of the tier that Indiana is really on. If they can't beat a single top 15 team they play.
Yeah.
And then they're playing close against the top 30, top 35 teams. I'm not disappointed in Indiana because they're exactly what I thought they were. So not mad about it. Any other honorable mentions? Most disappointing.
No, I'll go with that.
Okay, here are mine. Here are my honorable mentions. I have a couple personal picks.
Love it.
One of them being Toledo. I liked Toledo a lot last year, so I was really excited having them bring quite a few guys back. JT Shoemate, Cedric Milner. You know, they're bringing back some guys from a really good offense. They had that game early in the year where they beat UAB, and that had me really excited for what they were going to do moving forward. And then following that game, it's been like pretty up and down. They lost to Kansas City. They lost to East Carolina in back-to-back games. They lost to George Mason, who's like, I'm a Kim English guy, but George Mason's not that good. Like, I really think Toledo should have beaten them. And they lost by 15 to Marshall, which Marshall's a good team, but Toledo's sitting here with 4 losses, and I'm a little disappointed that they aren't.
Yeah.
But there's Kent State, and I'm pleased with Kent State. I wanted at least one of those 2 MAC teams to be good, and I think Kent State's like really legit. So
yeah.
My second honorable mention is Tulane. They were my favorite, like,
they're darlings
mid-major to follow entering the season. I thought Tulane was going to be really good, and it's not that they've been bad necessarily. They haven't been, wow, Tulane's really good. They have a big stretch coming up. They play Cincinnati and Memphis back to back. But they also lost to George Mason. George Mason is killing all these teams that I like. I don't know how to feel about that. They lost to Fordham, who is, I think, 12-1. So, like, I don't know how bad of a loss that really is. They lost to Nevada and they lost to Western Kentucky. And in a vacuum, it's like, okay, that's not a horrible loss. Like, they didn't lose to like Mississippi Valley State or anything. They didn't lose to McNeese. I thought that they would be kind of borderline, like, at-large consideration even. Like, I thought that was kind of what their ceiling was. And they have these, like, 4 losses, which taken in sum is I'm kind of disappointed in. Third honorable mention, I'll say Michigan.
Okay.
I just really thought that they'd be better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hunter's been fine. He's putting up numbers, but it's kind of empty calories. And I don't know how much you can really pile on Michigan because Jalen Llewellyn is out now for the season. So that kind of stinks. But
I like the Doug McDaniel minutes, but it's just kind of
he's been good.
You don't have a ton of guard play.
But overall, I thought Michigan would be the second best team in the Big Ten, and they don't look like the second best team in the Big Ten.
They don't look like a top 5 team in the Big Ten.
No. And then my 4th and 5th, I guess I'll just talk about them together, are Dayton and St. Louis. And I guess even by extension, the entire A10.
Okay.
Which is looking more and more like a one-bid conference this year.
Yeah.
I think it might be because, I mean, St. Louis is dropping games left and right. Dayton's offense is horrendous. Played one of the worst games of the season against Wisconsin, which I think ended like 43-42.
Yeah.
They're just not, like, they're not good. Like, these are 2 teams that people had in their preseason top 25, preseason top 30. And
I know I did.
I had both. I definitely had Dayton. I can't remember if I had St. Louis, but
I had St. Louis and Dayton.
Yeah, just overall the A10 has not been that great. There's been fun flashes. Like, Davidson's had their moments. I mean,
Davidson also lost to Northeastern.
They did. Yes.
Yeah.
This did happen. But yeah, I don't know. The A10 has been a disappointment. Dayton and St. Louis specifically, because those 2 were supposed to be very good. I mean, St. Louis getting blown out by Iona was pretty eye-opening.
Travesty.
Yeah. All right, let's move into the actual top 5. Who's your number 5?
Okay, so they're not my number 5, but you've already touched on it. Literally at my number 2, I had the entire A10.
At number 2, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, okay, so I was just kind of like listing teams off of the top, so I don't think I had them in like a 1 through 5 order. But the second, like when I thought of things that have disappointed me, it was the Atlantic 10 Conference.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to begin. You touched on a lot of it. Richmond being at 6-6 was kind of shocking because they're always a team that kind of competes at the top half of the A10. But they've dropped a lot of close contests and then got blown out by Clemson, which respectfully can't really happen. That is, I don't mean that to be a knock on Clemson, but like losing by 28 was kind of shocking. They lost by 23, I think, to Toledo. And they dropped some, like, the reason I think it's been disappointing is because they opened the year 2 wins, and then they dropped 3 really close contests back to back to back with Charleston, Wichita State, and then Syracuse by like a combined 7 points.
Yeah.
Which is tough. But it's like the A-10 isn't winning these games. Rhode Island has been a mess under Archie Miller. Under Archie Miller. They just canceled a game too. And you've talked ad nauseum about Dayton, St. Louis, and Davidson. So I'll shout out Duquesne and Fordham for looking like the cream of the crop right now. We'll see what happens come A-10 play.
Yeah.
But for a conference that we thought was going to have was on the precipice of probably 4 bids, for them to be staring down 1 bid with December not even over is alarming. Really
alarming. And it's not – I will give credit to Fordham and Duquesne where it's due, but I don't think we're going to sit here at the end of the season and say Fordham and Duquesne are the best teams in the A-10. So the fact that they look like the best teams in the A-10 right now is a big problem. So,
yes.
Yeah. So St. Louis is 8-5, Dayton's 8-5.
Yep.
And then they're sitting with George Mason at 8-5, who not only are they part of the most disappointing conference, but they've contributed to a couple losses for teams that I wanted to be good. So they're really just hitting me from every single angle. Yeah. But do you want to hit number 5?
Kentucky, which I feel might be a little bit harsh. Is that harsh? I don't really know.
I don't think it is. I don't think so for 5.
Okay. Because the Michigan State loss on the Champions Classic was like you're working Oscar Tshiebwe back and he played fantastic, but you're kind of waiting to see based off of the Severe Wheeler and Cason Wallace kind of who's your lead guard. They got killed by Gonzaga. And here's the thing. They've won the game, like credit where it's due. Like they've won the games. They have not had like a loss that is just an absolute travesty. They've won the games they're supposed to. They beat Michigan by 4, which you've talked about Michigan. Like it's not like it's all relative, but they won the game overseas. It's fine. But like the UCLA game last weekend didn't feel like as close as the scoreline would indicate, if that makes any sense. Like they ended up dropping it by 10 points, but it never felt like they were like it was back and forth a little bit, but it never felt like they were going to beat UCLA.
They were actually a threat to win the game. Yeah.
Yeah. It was an ugly game and they just didn't like, I don't know what it is because this is like, they're still top 10 in KenPom, which I get like at this point, we're still factoring in preseason, a little bit of preseason bias in that. It's alarming. They shot 6 of 21 from 3 against UCLA. Like they haven't really, besides Michigan State isn't that good.
Yeah.
They haven't really competed in the big games.
See, and here's what I think it is we looked at this Kentucky team at the beginning of the season, and I think one of the things we really liked about them was the roster construction after last season, which you return the National Player of the Year in Oscar Tshiebwe. You know you're going to get 15 and 15 from him. Then you bring CJ Frederick back from injury. You add Antonio Reeves. Like you're getting these guys who can shoot. So it's like, oh, like this seems like it's going to work out. You take a dominant big, you surround him with shooters, and let's cook. And here we are. And the guys that are supposed to be able to shoot cannot shoot. Yeah. And that's not good.
They only
and Tshiebwe's been, he's averaging 15 and 13. Like he's still putting up really good stats, but there's something about, it's just like not the same.
They also had 18 turnovers against UCLA. And it's just, they're averaging 12 a game, 18 assists. So like, but they average, like it was a total inverse of that against the Bruins. Yeah. So I don't know. They've yet to impress relative to, the lofty bars. Because we had so many questions about Arkansas and Alabama and Auburn heading into the season. And yeah, Arkansas and Alabama are probably the clear-cut 1-2 in the SEC.
Where would you put Tennessee? 3?
Oh my God, why did I forget Tennessee? It's like 1A, 1B, 1C.
The order is kind of irrelevant.
Like Kentucky's the 4.
Kentucky's 4. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the crazy part.
That's the crazy part. Yeah. I think I thought the ceiling for each of those teams maybe save Alabama. But I thought the ceiling for each of those teams was winning the SEC. Like, I don't know. I had Kentucky as the team that I picked to win, but I don't know that I envision a world.
Okay, I think I said this in the SEC preview, but I don't think I ever like I thought it would take. I mean, it could happen now. Nick Smith is hurt. They obviously lost Trayvon Brazile, but I didn't think like Arkansas could or would win the SEC regular season. I just thought too long, too many games. Plus, you're trying to integrate all these freshmen, all these moving pieces. Like I didn't, because I really did think that like Kentucky and Tennessee has been, but Kentucky, would be like this super composed. Like we know what we're doing. Been here before.
Yeah.
Also, I think I bought into the fact that they're coming off a historic upset, and this would be the year that Cal is like silencing the doubters.
Right. Yeah. So maybe not an exact replica of what Virginia did after they lost to UMBC, where they go on the warpath and then go on to win the national title. But it should have been. It had all the makings of a big bounce back year for Kentucky,
yes.
And so far it hasn't been a big bounce back year. They're good, just not
great.
They're not dominating.
No.
Yeah. All right. My number 5 is Oregon.
Shout out the Ducks.
Shout out the Ducks. I bought into the Dana Altman bounce back. I mean, I see the talent. Like the crazy thing about Oregon too is that I don't know that you can look at any one of their major contributors and say like they're playing really poorly. Like Will Richardson's putting up numbers. He's looked pretty good. Kello Ware, he's adjusting. He's a freshman, but he's looked fine. Folly Dante, he's been playing pretty well. Quincy Guerrier, I think his field goal percentage is pretty rough, but like also he's never been that efficient of a shooter. So it's like you kind of take what you can get there. Yeah. They lost to Utah Valley. Like you can't lose to Utah Valley at home and have me take you seriously. They dropped some other game too that was like, what
wasn't UC Irvine?
Yeah, okay. They lost to UC Irvine in like their second game of the season. And then other than that, I mean, they only lost by 9 to UCLA, and we know UCLA is really good. They got destroyed by UConn. They've played a tough schedule. I will give them that. Like they've played Houston, UConn in back-to-back games. Then Michigan State, Villanova. So like they've played some really good teams. It's just like they're just like not there. And then they drop these questionable ones against teams that are, the 8th or 9th best team on their schedule so far. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't really understand it. So yeah, they're my 5. Who's your 4?
North Carolina. They've picked it up of late. Like this is the stat I wanted to throw in as like the little caveat. Since they lost to Virginia Tech on December 4th, they are 24th in Bart Torvik over their 4-0 stretch. They've picked up wins over a good Ohio State team and a mad Michigan team.
Yeah.
Right. Slow start to the season. The tide appears to be shifting in their favor. But, like, the reason it was just a little disappointing is because they did drop those 4 games. Charleston is a really quality mid-major, but there's no reason that roster was letting them hang around for 35 minutes. The Portland game, Portland was the better team for like 38 minutes. Then they dropped the game to Iowa State. Then they lose to Alabama. Then they lose to Indiana, who we've talked about. And then they lose to Virginia Tech on the road, which Blacksburg is always a tough place to win. Yeah. But it was this weird thing that, like, I get Brady Manick and Pete Nance are not a like-for-like swap, but it was like they weren't even trying to do what found them success over that late push last season. And they weren't getting bench production. Hubert Davis seemingly like didn't have the buy-in. They were not force-feeding Armando Bacot, which is just an absurd thing to not do. Yeah. They seem to be finding their rhythm. They've been picking their play of late. They beat the 2 teams like I mentioned. It was probably just a matter of time, and Hubert Davis was obviously fine. They have appeared to right the ship. There are still some lingering questions, as with all teams, but considering where you were at 3 weeks ago, now you're heading into the Christmas break. You'll come back to Pitt on the road. You have to be feeling at least better after going from 5-4 to 9-4. You didn't drop any of those games, which seemed real iffy. Like the Ohio State win was not great by any stretch of the imagination. You needed that Pete Nance fall away at the buzzer to take it overtime, but they controlled overtime for what it's worth. Still things to clean up, but that's why you play the games. It's December.
Yeah.
I think we all collectively overreacted a little bit, which makes sense. It was fair to overreact and not have the questions, but this is a team that is going to be at the top of the ACC or competing at least with the top of the ACC.
Sure. My number 4 was another ACC team. I had Florida State.
Yeah.
I really thought, that their big downfall last season was injuries.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily a lack of talent or, a lack of coaching. It was just like the guys that we need are getting hurt. We have to change up the rotation like every third game because somebody new is coming back or somebody just got hurt. So I thought, all right, and they haven't even been fully healthy this year. So it's not like they've solved that big problem really, but they opened the season with losses to Stetson, UCF, and Troy, and then Florida. And then they finally got their first win of the season against Mercer, only to lose to Siena, Stanford, Nebraska, Purdue, Virginia.
Yeah.
All in sequence. It's been so rough for them. They beat Louisville, blew them out as they should have. They beat USC upstate, and then lost to St. John's and won a close one against Notre Dame. So they've started to string together, some wins. They've won 3 of their last 4. But that beginning of the season was absolutely brutal. And this was a team that I thought had the talent, had the ability to be a top 5 team in the ACC. And maybe, it's easy in retrospect to say I was foolish for that. But I think on paper they looked like that, at least entering the season.
In the absence of Baba Miller hurts, but
free Baba Miller, dude.
True.
Yeah. What's their record right now? He got suspended for 16 games. All right, so 2 more games. 2 more games without Baba Miller.
Then they're back.
So they got to play Duke and Georgia Tech, and then he's back for Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Nice. Good stuff. All right, who's your 3?
Louisville.
Actually?
Yeah.
You expected something out of Louisville? Or it's just
I
I
expected them to not have 2 wins by the end of December. Yeah. I expected that, at the bare minimum, this is an ACC basketball team with, on paper, athletes who know what they're doing and have played collegiately, that even though he did not hit the portal for a guard, Kenny Payne went out and got some people. And I thought Brandon Huntley Hatfield in particular would be better than the 8 points and 6 rebounds he is currently putting up. We knew that the roster construction was poor, heading into the year.
Yeah.
But I cannot describe to you that as an ACC basketball team, you should not be starting the year 0-9.
I don't know.
It can't happen. It can't happen.
I can't go there with you. Just the roster construction was so poor.
I get it, but okay, so then Kenny Payne should be the disappointment. I guess it is on him in his first year, like so many other coaches did in their first years at Power 6 schools, to hit the portal and bring guys in who can temporarily win you games in the short term. You can get your guys and start recruiting later. And listen, I'm not saying, DJ Wagner signed an NIL deal with Nike. He had a shoe with Nike. He was a Kentucky kid through and through. But for that brief 3-week period where you hired his grandpa, can you imagine if you weren't losing basketball games? Then you bringing in a top 5 recruit, maybe that changed the tide of that recruiting class as a whole. Yeah. All this to be said, Kenny Payne and the way that team started was incredibly disappointing. Louisville cannot be 360th in Ken Palm.
That is really, yeah. I get that.
That's my thing. It can't. You are a program that has won national titles. You are a program that has won a national title in the last decade. That is disappointing.
That was stripped, but
stripped because of strippers.
Aha.
Anyway, yeah.
I get what you're saying. The magnitude of suck is so severe that it's you couldn't even be bad, but still a Power 5 team.
Yeah.
They're not even a bad Power 5 team. They're losing to Division II schools, basically.
And you're making the ACC worst, and we don't need that.
It's true. Yeah, they're dragging down the perception of the rest of the conference. So,
that's my favorite.
I get where you're going, but I also just can't think of them as disappointing. So it's not like I had any expectations for them at all.
I had expectations for them to win games in the non-conference. You should. You should.
You're right. You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that. I guess it's just where we're starting from is different. But yeah, my number 3 is Florida, and just because I think generally I was skeptical of the Todd Golden hire because he was a 500 coach in WCC play. And I get the appeal of hiring like this, analytical, forward-thinking head coach, but they just have not beaten a single team with a pulse this season. Like any team they play that's remotely competitive, they lose to.
Okay.
And I'll pull it up right now. Like they're hovering around 500, but all their losses are to teams that are like decent. Okay, wins against Stony Brook, Kennesaw State, Florida State, Oregon State, Florida A&M, Stetson, and Ohio. All not good basketball teams.
Yeah.
All their losses, Florida Atlantic, one of the best mid-majors. Xavier, West Virginia, by a lot. UConn, by a lot. Oklahoma, by 9. Like, any team that's, like, approaching good mid-major or middle-of-the-pack Power 5 level, they're losing that game. I think just, like, this was a team that, there were people who had them, like, top 15 entering the year. There were people who really bought into Florida. I had them top 30, I think, like 29 or 30. And they're not good. They're really not good right now.
Yeah.
So they have good pieces. Like I like Will Richard. I like Alex Fudge, Colin Castleton.
Obviously great. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously great, but
I think that's fair.
The early returns for Todd Golden have been pretty poor. So
yeah.
Your number 2 is the A-10. We talked about them. My number 2 is UNC. We kind of talked about them, and they have started to, like, the only reason they're not 1 is because they have started to put it together, but just by virtue of being
the number 1 team in the country and dropping out of the top 25 within 4 weeks.
Exactly. Like I have to put you on here. Like, sorry, but they've started to look better as of late. Number 1, I feel like we have the same number 1 team.
We definitely do.
It's the Creighton Blue Jays, isn't it? It is. Oh man.
Yeah. These Blue Jays, man.
I don't know. Go for it. They started out 6-0 and then lost their next 6 games.
I just want to cry. Like,
it's tough.
I'm going to end up on, like, freezing cold takes for some of that stuff I said about them in the Big East preview.
Yeah.
But, like, they are not a good shooting basketball team. And kindly, even with Kalkbrenner on the floor, you can't lose to Nebraska by double digits. This is a different team. Like, part of the reason when Kalkbrenner was out, they were just dropping games. It was like 2 or 3. And, like, I didn't realize the impact that he had because they are just not good without him.
No, not at all.
They fall apart.
Yeah.
But Shireman is not as good as we thought he'd immediately be. He's still averaging 13. He is their leading rebounder at almost 10 a game, which is huge. He's hitting the glass. But this is, again, a team that lost 6 games in a row. As a consensus, like, top 10 team nationally.
Yeah.
Greg Waddell and I agreed that, like, if this is, like, literally – he had made a great point in the preseason that if this was any other team, like with a DUKE across their chest or North Carolina or Kentucky or whatever it is, they were a blue blood and they had this roster, and then you add a top 5 transfer.
Yeah.
This is a top 5 team. And it was. And they beat Texas Tech. And they beat Arkansas in an absolute thriller in Maui. And then they come back and they lose to Arizona just by 2 in the final. And you're like, wow, this team is really good. And then they come back and lose by single digits to Texas after being killed for a large portion of that game. Because they were 1 of 22 for 3 until Baylor Shireman hit threes late. And then you drop just an absolute stinker to Nebraska. And then the spiral just zoom.
Yep.
Down.
Yeah.
It's like Georgetown. And you never want to look like Georgetown.
No. And you mentioned, so Shireman, like, the cool thing about Shireman is that he was really just brought in to be a shooter. Like, he obviously did a lot at South Dakota State, but they brought him in because the guy shot like 46% from 3 and they needed shooting really, really badly. But he's brought all of the aspects of his game. Like, he's been much more than just a shooter for this team. Like, he is leading the team in rebounding. His playmaking has been great. But he also, like, the reason they brought him in as just a shooter is because they thought they would have everything else, and it turns out they don't have everything else right now. Like, it's not all clicking at all. He shouldn't have to have the role that he had at South Dakota State.
Yeah, and it's tough in the grand scheme of things because you look at like their schedule and you see that 6-game losing streak, and they lost by single digits in 4 of them. You lose by 3 to BYU, you lose by 2 to Arizona State, 5 to Texas, 2 to Arizona, and like they just weren't able to close those games out, minus Kalkbrenner and the ones that weren't against Texas and Arizona.
Right.
And they got beat pretty handily by Marquette.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly disappointing because you went from a team that was probably going to be competing for a 1 or 2 seed to now, which listen, it could be a problem for opposing teams, but like now you're going to be like a 6 or 7, maybe even an 8, depending on how the Big East fares.
Still a 6 or 7 that I don't really ever want to see, because we've seen what this team looks like in a tournament scenario.
Yep.
You know, and they, you can talk about the softer rims in Maui all you want, but they looked really, really good. But I think that's part of what makes them so disappointing is how sharp the rug pull was on this team, where it was like they are so good, like they're as good as we thought they could be, and suddenly they're everything we hoped they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right after that. So yeah, Creighton, most disappointing team entering 2023. Hopefully they pick it up. Let's go to our most surprising teams. I'll just run through my honorable mentions with a quick note on all of them. So I have UConn in my honorable mentions, not because it has nothing to do with the fact that I didn't think they could be this good. Like I've talked about them a lot and I did think they could be this good, but the timing of how good they've been is what has surprised me. Like the fact that they're this good right away is why I'm surprised by UConn. I have Marquette on here. I thought this team would be not good, like really bad, actually. I had them as a bottom 3 team in the Big East, and they handled Creighton. They blew out Baylor. They're like a legit top 25 team right now. Like Tyler Kolek's been good. I'm very impressed by Marquette. Begrudgingly, I have Wisconsin on here. I still don't think they're very good. And they continue to pull out these wins that don't make any sense. Like their offense is objectively bad and their defense is just fouling people. So I don't really understand how they continue to win games. And maybe that shouldn't be surprising because this is kind of what Wisconsin does every single year. Like that's just what they are as a program, is being good and winning games when you think they won't. I had to acknowledge Wisconsin just for the fact that I thought they'd be a basement dweller in the Big Ten this year. Probably thought that last year too. I don't know. And then they won the conference. But NC State,
okay,
I've been pleasantly surprised by, just because I had them as a middle of the pack ACC team. But they've just been so fun to watch. Like their offense is awesome. Terquavian Smith is him. I love NC State. They're great. And then I have Arizona State on here as well, because the range of outcomes for them was, I mean, so vast.
Yeah.
They could have been a really bad team, but they've looked good. They've looked really good. Playing like a top 25 team, absolutely. They picked up a win against Creighton as well. So I'm impressed with the job that Bobby Hurley has done in Arizona State. But honestly, the real proving ground for Arizona State will be late in the season, because like that's been their problem in previous years, is just collapsing down the stretch. So while they have been surprising, I think, like better than pretty much anybody expected, the job is definitely not finished based on recent history. So yeah. Give me your honorable mentions.
I also had UConn. I'll just rattle off some more. Fordham being 12-1, I would not have expected at this point.
Good shout.
I had Florida Atlantic on here. They narrowly missed being that top 5. Just for them to be at 10-1 right now, they're top 40 in Ken Palm, top 50 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, I believe. Did not expect that from them.
They're legit good.
Yeah. New Mexico, I had, even though I feel like it's a slight to them because they are undefeated and Patino's done a really good job, but I had a couple other teams just above them in terms of like the wins they've had. I want to give a quick shout out to Penn State, because I thought like it's in particular the play of Jalen Pickett, but this was a team that like, and listen, they were pegged in the almanac as the sleeper team, but I'm not sure everyone bought it. Like Penn State was pretty consistently around that 9 to 12 range in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
and they've rattled off some wins. Jalen Pickett is him. might be the best point guard in the country, ? Might be.
I mean, he's up there for sure.
He's definitely up there. He's
Yeah.
definitely up there. It's a good assortment, I think.
Sure.
I'll go with those quick ones.
All right, I'll jump into my number 5. My number 5 is Mississippi State.
Okay.
Their defense has been extremely impressive. They only just recently picked up their first loss. I mean, they were one of the last 5 undefeated teams. They lost to Drake by 6, and Drake is like a really good mid-major, so there's really no shame in that. I don't see them as like a top 15 team. That's as high as they got in the poll. They got up to 15. Yeah, really high. I think I had them finishing 8th or 9th in the SEC, something like that. I mean, Tolu Smith has looked good. He didn't have that great of a game against Drake, but overall he's been really impressive. Like we dropped Tolu Smith's name on our last episode, maybe, or 2 episodes ago.
Yep.
Because he's up there for like Ken Palm Player of the Year or something.
He is.
And so I have Mississippi State at 5. I mean, they're number 5 in defensive efficiency and a top 40 Ken Palm team, and I don't think I would have thought that entering the year.
All right.
Number 5?
Charleston.
Okay. Yeah. I love that.
Actually. Yeah.
I love that.
So they have the one blemish on their resume is an away loss in their second game of the season to North Carolina, which they were in that game for 85% of the game. And then just North Carolina's size, athleticism, won out. They have rattled off win. They convincingly trounced Davidson. They beat Richmond. They beat Colorado State, Virginia Tech, Kent State, who I know is your darling. They beat Coastal Carolina on the road. Like, this team is just racking up wins, and I just wanted to give them a shout out. Like, this is a really impressive team. I vote in the student media poll, shout out them, and I have had Charleston ranked for the past like 3 or 4 weeks.
Nice.
They have yet to make it into the top 25. I think I'm probably the only one in that receiving votes category, but 12-1 at this point in the season, especially just competing in the Colonial. Mm-hmm. They are going to win games. That's probably their conference to lose. Yeah, I'd love to see them in the tournament. Pat Kelsey is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Go Charleston. I don't know.
Go Charleston. I like it. My number 4 is New Mexico.
Okay.
One of the final undefeateds. It's just weird to see Richard Pitino winning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've in recent years just associated seeing Richard Pitino with a failing basketball team, with losing. Like those Minnesota teams towards the end of his time there were really, really bad. And then he gets, I can't remember if he was fired or if it was like a mutual agreement for him to leave or whatever. But he goes to New Mexico, which when he got there was a not good situation either. And within a couple of years, they're 12-0. Like, he just won his first ever game against his dad. Pretty convincing game against Iona, who's a top 20 mid-major. So, yeah, New Mexico.
It's good.
One of the better teams in the Mountain West, which has produced quite a few surprising teams, honestly. Like Utah State has been really good. UNLV has been good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
My 4 is Southern Miss.
Okay, I like that.
They are a team that was pegged to finish 14th out of 14 teams in the Sun Belt.
Is that true? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
14th. Yeah, dead last. They were 1-17 in Conference USA the previous year. Jay Ladner, like, the bar was so low. And this team is 11-2 right before Christmas. Their 2 losses are away games on the road to Northwestern State, which they dropped in a close one. They lost 84-82, and UNLV, which UNLV is not a bad loss.
Right.
They have,
not a bad loss at all.
Again, it's like these expectations. I mean, the expectations were low, but you beat Vanderbilt on the road. You beat Liberty on the road. You beat you massacre Winthrop, and then you beat Purdue Fort Wayne, which is the Mastodons are going to compete at the top of the Horizon League. Yeah. And so you have all these wins, and then you're taking care of business elsewhere, and you've dropped the 2 close contests. And I just, like, for where the expectations were at, this was a team that was not expected to have like anything like remotely resembling a lot of wins, and they have skyrocketed up Ken Palm. I think they were in the low. I mean, they were. I don't know what the exact number is, but they were definitely in the 300s at the start of the season, and now they're 136.
Yeah.
So that's just, you have to like shout them out for what they're doing, and they
For
started
sure.
season 8-0. Yeah.
Yeah, they deserve it. Absolutely. My number 3 is Purdue.
Okay.
I didn't even have them in my top 30 entering the year. I know some people had them like borderline top 25. So they're kind of hovering right around that 25 to 30 range. But this is a team that on paper was just objectively less talented than they were last year. That was a really good roster they had last year. And I mean, you could argue about whether or not those pieces really fit together all that well, but that's kind of what's surprising is like the drop off in talent coupled with the fact that they're just a better team overall, I think, than they were last year. It doesn't immediately make a ton of sense, but just the way that they've been able to build things completely around Zach Edey has been very impressive. Very impressive. And he's the front runner for National Player of the Year. So
yes,
I'm going to throw Purdue out there.
My number 3 is Queens University.
Okay.
I wanted to give a shout out to a local team.
I love this.
Yeah, they obviously, like, growing up in Charlotte, like you know a little bit like about them, like at the Division II level, and all they did was hang banners. All they did was cut down nets, and they make this transition to Division I, and they are competing immediately. And it has me wondering whether they're like actually going to compete at the top of the A-Sun, which maybe we have another Bellarmine situation where this is a team that in year one, after transitioning up from Division II to Division I, can make the NCAA tournament. We'll see. The A-Sun is always competitive. Liberty is probably still that team. Bellarmine is obviously good. Like, I mean, that conference is a lot of fun. They were pegged to finish 12th out of 14 in the preseason by the Almanac, and they're 10-3. They won at Marshall in their opener. Their 3 losses are all on the road. They lost at Nebraska. They lost at LaSalle, and they've lost at George Mason. None of them were by more than 12 points, right? This is a group of guys that I think in the Almanac it says all these guys know how to do is win, and that's very clear. They have not been backing down. And so it's just one of those things where you're just astounded, not only that they're like it's one thing to compete, but it's another thing to like rattle off these wins right after making the move. And so I wanted to give them that shout out here because like I would not have expected this.
No, I love that. And I would definitely root for them to win that A-Sun tournament in year one because I think that would further indicate to the NCAA that they need to change
their rules.
Rule. Yep. Like that would push it further down the line, especially after what Bellarmine did last year. So I would absolutely love that. That'd be fantastic. Yep. My number 2 is Alabama.
Okay.
I think this was another team with a pretty wide range of outcomes, but and a young team too. And we've seen some of the struggles with having a young team as far as like turnovers go. Like they turn the ball over a lot. But they're competing with some of the best teams in the country and are one of the best teams in the country themselves right now. Where are they in KenPom right now?
Alabama?
Yeah, they're 12. They're 12. They're 12 in KenPom. Okay, so they're not like I think in the
and they meet both barometers of a national champion. They're top 40 in offense and top 22 in defense.
There you go. So and Brandon Miller is best freshman in the country.
Do you agree with Tate Frazier that he's the best player in the country?
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready to say that, but he's top 3. He's top 3 player in the country right now. Brandon Miller. It's not just chuck up a bunch of threes anymore. It's like we're also going to play defense, and we have this awesome freshman who's going to score 36 points on you and can take you off the dribble and like can shoot from 35 feet. Like they're a lot of fun. They're competing with the best teams. They've surprised me because I think there was definitely a world where like they couldn't overcome the youth factor. Where they did just evolve. Yeah, they're way more well-rounded, I think, than I was prepared for, and I'm impressed by that.
My number 2 is none other than
Northwestern. Okay.
So I have to I have to give them a shout out.
Yeah, just for the sake of the defense.
Yes, this is a team that is 8th right now in defensive efficiency. If you go back to December 4th, I actually caught this on Bart Torvik when I was getting my little UNC thing. They're 2nd nationally defensive efficiency on Bart Torvik over the last like 3 weeks.
That's crazy.
So I remember ranting about this a couple episodes ago, but the Pitt loss is an outlier. Like, that is a game where the game plan was like, this team can't shoot, we'll let you shoot, and Pitt made the shots.
They shot like 60% from three.
It was an extreme outlier for Pitt. They shot 63.6% from three.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this Northwestern defense has been fantastic. You lose by 1 point on a neutral site in a hotel ballroom in Cancun to Auburn. Say what you will about Auburn. It was one of the worst offensive games I've ever seen, but the defense was spectacular. Chase Audige is hooping. Chase Audige is making he's going to make Big Ten all-defense take look phenomenal right now. He's averaging like
last year?
No, from this year. I said it this year.
Oh, you're right.
I said that in my hot takes. Chris Collins, in desperation mode, is clearly a top 25 coach in the sport. He went out and revamped his assistant coaching staff. He added Coach Lowry, who is just a defensive guru and has transformed how this team plays defense. There were still a ton of concerns offensively, but this defense has and can and will keep them in games.
Mm-hmm.
They're tenacious. These guys are playing together. They have routed DePaul and UIC recently, which is big because I would not have said that heading into the year.
They run Chicago, dude.
You heard it here first. Chris Collins, when you get that extension again, schedule Loyola.
There you go. They'd beat Loyola right now. Loyola's not good.
No, they would. They run this city. You heard it here from us before you heard it on Twitter. Saw it on Twitter. But also, shout out Robbie Barron. He might be the most underrated defender in the country. He is phenomenal. He does not post the stats, but he is a phenomenal wing defender. I just wanted to give him that shout out.
Love it.
Go Cats.
Yeah, we're going to continue the homerism because number one for me, call me a homer all you want, but it's the Terps. It's probably bad. I don't know if this shows up backwards on the camera.
No, it was not backwards. You were good. You were good.
It's the Terps. Like, I was higher on them than most people, and I had them finishing 9th in the conference.
Crazy.
People had them as like a bottom 3 team in the Big Ten. And listen, the recent returns have not been great. They dropped 3 straight at Wisconsin. They lost to Tennessee. They got absolutely killed by UCLA. Actually, so I went to the UCLA game. It was like one of the most deflating things in the world. I left, I think, with like 7 minutes left. There was like 0 point at which we were in the game, but we did get free koozies, so that's fun, I guess. I don't know. Good. Yeah, sure. I mean, take what you can get. Recent returns have not been great. I will be the first to admit that, but just like this was supposed to be a really bad team, and this, like, they're a tournament team. They are a tournament team right now, and this was supposed to be a team that, like, maybe they get to the NIT. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Dante Scott's looked really good, especially after dropping 15 to 20 pounds. Hakeem Hart, when he gets the ball, he does great things with it. Jameer Young has made the transition from Charlotte like pretty much perfectly. He's been almost done everything I could want. Big man depth is a problem, but overall the results I'm very, very pleased with. Very pleased with.
Absolutely. As you should be.
Yeah.
My number one for me was already mentioned by Carl, but it's Purdue.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it is. Like, because I did not have them in my top 30, I don't think. But the major concern for this team was can Zach Edey go for over 20 minutes a game?
Mm-hmm.
And he has taken that argument and just gotten rid of it with ease. Like, he's the front runner for National Player of the Year.
Absolutely.
Yes, they're starting 3 freshmen, but listen, they could drop a couple of games in Big Ten play, but that's to be expected, right? Like this, they haven't yet. They've picked apart West Virginia, Gonzaga, and Duke, and they did that in a span of 4 days. They've taken care of business elsewhere. They have not lost a game. They're the number 1 team in the country. This was a team that was probably projected to finish somewhere in like that 4 to 8 range in the conference, and they are now in a conference that is all over the map, the lone team at the top. So for all the reasons you said, for those reasons, Purdue is the most surprising.
Okay. Do you have Purdue at number 1 or UConn at number 1?
Before that Georgetown game, I would have said UConn, but no, I still have UConn.
Okay. Yeah, I also have UConn, but I totally understand the case that like Purdue's strength of schedule has been
on merit. Yeah, on merit, it's probably Purdue, but I have UConn at 1.
But just I try to look at everything I can, but a lot of it is just the eye test. Like Purdue had some close calls.
But they've taken care of business.
But they have, right? Like you still win the games, but UConn is just boat racing everybody. So it's hard to. I understand both arguments. I just have UConn first. All right, so that's going to conclude most surprising, most disappointing. We're at over an hour, but I have one like last little thing before we close. We didn't record an episode last week, so like we had a lot to talk about, you know.
Yeah.
I saw this graphic from, I don't know if you follow JG Trends on Twitter. You do. Okay, so maybe you've seen this graph. So, but what the graph is, it's titled "Fitting In," and what it looks at is which teams, based on their efficiency, based on their advanced stats, are tracking the closest to historic Final Four teams.
Mm-hmm.
So teams that in the past have made the Final Four. What were their efficiencies, and how do the top 40 teams this year stack up against that? Okay, so maybe you've seen this graph. So he has these teams charted all over the graph, but in the middle there's a little
big
heat
orange thing, right?
Yeah, big orange. Yeah. It's like a little heat map type thing. And so that's kind of like the hot spot of like where the most teams. It's like a high correlation between like these efficiencies and teams that made the Final Four. So I'm going to go through the teams that are touching that red zone. And just ask you yes or no. Do you think this team can make the Final Four?
This is fun.
Yeah. All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. Illinois. It's a hot one.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. St. Mary's.
Okay. Yeah.
St. Mary's.
No.
Okay. Alabama.
Yes.
Duke.
No.
Marquette.
No.
Penn State.
Yes, because this would be the year that we get like a Kemba Walker, Shabazz Napier run, and Jalen Pickett could be that guy.
Okay. Xavier.
No.
Ohio State.
No.
Virginia Tech.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
They ride the 3-point shooting to the Final Four?
Yes. Mike Young is that good of a coach. Yeah.
Okay. I can respect that. West Virginia. I should have mentioned them in most surprising.
Yeah.
But Brian Ralph did clue us in, so hard to say.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. West Virginia. No. Kentucky.
No. Would have said yes. No.
You just
Not
don't think they can put it together?
Yeah. Did I say yes for Illinois? I guess I should probably follow.
You did say I don't.
Then I'll say yes.
I think you said yes, but it took you a while.
Kentucky. Yeah.
Okay. Purdue.
Yeah.
UCLA.
Yes.
Yes. Dude, UCLA has been really good.
Yeah.
Really good. UConn.
Yeah, of course.
Maryland.
No.
Yeah, you're right. Iowa.
No.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. You don't get to lose Eastern Illinois, and then I get to say that you can make it
that Iowa makes the Final Four. This is going to come back to haunt us for sure, but I'm willing to say
it is. Chris Murray's going to go on some magic.
I'm willing to say there's no chance that Iowa makes the Final Four.
Okay.
Virginia.
Yeah.
Creighton.
God, I want to say yes, but no.
Okay, and it's sort of hard to tell. Arizona's maybe touching it.
But yes, Arizona can make the Final.
Okay. Some of the teams that are just outside, I'll just run through them, but I'm not going to ask. So Baylor, Indiana, Houston, Texas are kind of all outside.
Baylor, Houston could make it. Yeah, obviously.
Gonzaga?
Yes.
Okay.
I have to, right?
The Gonzaga win over Alabama was like, if they lost that game, I think I would have been out on Gonzaga. But that showed that they can still like win those types of games. Okay. They scored 100 points on Alabama.
They did.
Yeah, that was a very high scoring game. Almost 200 points scored. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. Kansas is just outside.
Obviously, they can make it.
I guess. I don't know. I'm still hesitant.
Neither of you were high. Neither of us were high on them. But.
No, and they still are one-dimensional, but it's really working. So it's hard to knock it when it's working.
They're great defensively.
Yeah. Texas Tech is like just outside.
No.
There's no way. No way. Oklahoma State and Arkansas are kind of like just outside.
Arkansas can. Oklahoma State cannot.
Oklahoma State ranks pretty high in a lot of metrics, but like eye test, they don't look that good. Mm-hmm. So sort of tough to parse out what's going on there, but at least the analytics confirm me being relatively high on them. So
It's true.
I'm fine with it for the sake of the narratives. And then the other teams that are probably closest to this little heat zone are Rutgers and Mississippi State, who I think are both a no.
I want to believe in Rutgers.
I want to believe in Rutgers as well. But didn't you say Rutgers would win the Big Ten tournament?
I do, and I'll stick with it.
Okay, so that's your take. Are you still sticking with Gonzaga winning?
I might as well until I'm wrong.
There you go. Yeah, the take's not dead till it's dead. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for tuning in to this episode that's a little longer than normal, but again, we had a lot of takes to get off. We had a lot of things to talk about. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify. You can follow us at Jimmer Range Pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Really, anywhere you want to look, you're going to find us there. Alex, got any final thoughts?
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you. Hope you all are enjoying this college basketball season. Enjoy time with your family, with your friends. We'll see you guys next time, probably in 2023.